To ask Pinkerton-Knelsen, who's lead in the Injured Workers Advocacy Group in London. Thank you very much, Wendy, for being here. I should add as well that all of the people speaking today are all part of our London Congress. So, welcome, Wendy.
Thanks, Patty. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wendy. I am the facilitator for the Injured Workers Group locally here. I'm also on the executive for Oniwg, which is the provincial organization. I'm here today to really just to discuss with you the issues that are affecting injured workers. And I think this common front is very important. Although our numbers aren't huge right now, we need to grow and we need to continue to grow and work together, all of our groups. Income equality with regards to injured workers is nothing new. This has been going on for many, many years due to W.S.I.B. and the government continually slashing benefits to workers, continually making changes to legislations. We've got 3 different legislations now. The cost of living allowance, the Liberal government brought this in many years ago in 1985. They recently spent over $2.3 million on esteemed Professor Harry Arthur's report. And in that report, he stated that injured workers are underfunded with regards to cost of living, and have been for many, many years. And despite the amount of money that they spent on it, and the time and energy that was invested in that, and everyone that participated in it, the board still, and the government still chose to ignore that and to give injured workers a 0.5 increase, which is not even the CPI index of the day. So again, we're still lagging behind just like everyone else, and there's no way to get ahead. It's typical, as we all know in this room. I'm not speaking to the choir here. We all know that they blatantly disregard recommendations. They do these consultations. They hire companies. People like Kevin have made sure that we're all become aware about KPMG, and they hire these companies who have fraud backgrounds. They put them in there to say what they want to say, and if someone like Professor Arthur says something they don't like the cost of living allowance being underfunded, they ignore it. So they pick and choose what they want to do. That's got to stop. It's a blatant disregard for the public and to workers, and it's got to stop. We've gone from a workplace or a workman's compensation system that was put in place to protect workers to an insurance system, and I say shame to that. To add insult to injury, David Marshall, who is the president of the W.S.I.B, he receives a huge salary. In addition to this salary, the government and W.S.I.B has chosen to give him a huge bonus, $300,000 over 5 years, if he continues to cut costs to the workers' compensation. And really what that means for workers is they're not getting their benefits, they're being hurt, they're still getting permanent injuries, but they're not getting protected. They're being downloaded onto the systems, whether it be Ontario Works, ODSP, CPP Disability, shelters, family, communities, all the things that the principles of Meredith, which this act was built on, all of those things that he said shouldn't happen, that's what's happening. They're becoming a burden on their families and their communities, and they're suffering, and their families are suffering, and children are suffering. Let's not forget, it's not just the injured worker who's out in the workforce, although we do have young workers now in the workforce. These families have children, and they have grandchildren, and they're breaking apart from their families. There's dissolution of marriage as a result of it. There's loss of homes. It just goes on and on. The big bonus to Marshall, I think, is just absolutely disgusting and appalling, especially in this day and age where everyone is suffering. He's making more in 1 year than probably all of us in this room would ever dream to make in our lifetime. And he's doing it solely on the backs of injured workers, and also on the backs of taxpayers and communities, because it is being downloaded onto the system. The Liberals need to get back to their roots. They're imitating Mike Harris. Back in 1985, Labour Minister Bill Rye stated that from this day on, injured workers will no longer have to come to the legislature cap in hand to request what is due to them. Well, I'll tell you, injured workers, every year on Injured Workers' Day, June 1st, is still going to Queen's Park and going to the Ministry of Labour cap in hand. They're struggling and their families are struggling. Now they're also doing this new benefits policy review and appeals modernization consultation. So more consultations, more companies. We don't know if they're going to be similar to KPMG, or are they going to at least go into it slightly unbiased. We're very skeptical because of the history of what they've done. But what it means is more denials, in a culture of denial at the board, and more downloading onto social programs. As far as the housing, I can tell you, in the injured workers in our local group, this has affected them greatly. We have, I know one person in our group who's a single mother, and she has been in an apartment with her son, trying to raise her son, working part-time when she's in chronic pain and shouldn't be working at all because of the board system. And being vulnerable, a single parent, she is continually waiting to get help with housing. She's been on a waiting list for over 10 years. Her son just turned 18, so is now going to be moving out, going to school, progressing as we all do when we were young, and we hope to do. And now she has to move, and has just moved, to a smaller apartment, a one-bedroom, that they have to try to accommodate in there because she can't afford it. 10 years. I'm sorry, but if that doesn't say the system is failing, I don't know what does. People are struggling to make ends meet, and it really needs to end. One worker stated, "Losing my house because no one wants to hire a 59-year-old with a medical history. My address will change soon, and it might change to a shelter." We have workers that are living in shelters. We have workers that are living on the couches of other friends and family members. And it should not be happening. They should be taken care of. They went into work healthy. They came out with permanent injuries, and they should be taken care of. They're not asking for anything to be given to them. We made the historic compromise, and by we, I mean all of us, workers, period, made that compromise back many years ago in 1913. And that was done with the assumption that they would be taken care of. Their benefits and their medical care would be taken care of, that they wouldn't be a burden on their families and communities. And in fact, that's exactly what's happening. Community services have chronically been underfunded and slashed. I know in St. Thomas, where I live, WSIB clients are now going to be struggling because they're talking about closing. They have announced the closure of that office. They're some of the most vulnerable people in our society. People with physical and emotional illnesses that need help, and they need face-to-face help with those counselors.